Hello and welcome. Today we're going to talk about something that's, it's a real pain in the shoulder. Literally. We're diving into adhesive capsulitis, but you probably know it by its much more common name, the dreaded frozen shoulder. So have you ever had that feeling? Where your shoulder just feels stuck? Like painfully stuck? You go to reach for something on a high shelf and bam, this sharp pain just stops you in your tracks. If that sounds familiar, you've come to the right place. We're going to get into exactly why that happens. All right, let's get right into it. Section 1. What is a frozen shoulder? Let's cover the basics. So the fancy medical name is adhesive capsulitis, and if you break that down, it actually tells you a lot. Capsulitis, that itis ending usually means inflammation, right? So inflammation of the capsule. And adhesive, well, that's the sticky part. It's like the capsule around your shoulder joint gets inflamed and then starts to tighten up, almost like it's sticking to itself, and that's what really limits your movement. I love this analogy because it makes it so clear. Just think about the lining around your shoulder joint. It's supposed to be this loose, flexible bag, right? Now imagine that bag is like a t-shirt that's suddenly way too tight. It just shrinks and clamps down on the joint. You can't move, you can't stretch, it's just stuck. That's pretty much what's happening inside your shoulder. Now, this thing can pop up in a couple of different ways. First, you've got what's called primary or idiopathic frozen shoulder. And idiopathic is just a doctor's way of saying, we honestly don't know why this happened. It just appears out of the blue. This is actually the most common kind. Then you have secondary frozen shoulder, which, as the name suggests, is a result of something else. Maybe you had an injury or surgery, or your arm was in a sling for a while. So that naturally leads to the next big question, right? Who gets this and why? Let's look at the risk factors and causes. Okay, so when you look at who's most at risk, some pretty clear patterns show up. The age range is a big one. It typically hits people between 40 and 65. It's also more common in women. But here's the real kicker. Certain medical conditions are huge risk factors. We're talking about things like diabetes and thyroid disease. And of course, if you've had a previous shoulder injury, surgery, or had to keep your arms still for a long time, that puts you at higher risk too. And to really drive that point home, check out this chart. For most people, the risk of getting frozen shoulder is, relatively small, somewhere between 2 and 5%. But if you have diabetes, wow, that risk just explodes. We're talking a 10 to 38% higher risk. That is a huge difference. It's a really important link for people to know about. Okay, here's something that's super important to understand about frozen shoulder. Even though it can feel totally random and chaotic, it actually follows a surprisingly predictable path, a journey, really, in 3 painful stages. Knowing these stages is everything when it comes to managing this thing. And here's the roadmap for that journey. You start in the freezing stage, then you move into the frozen stage, and finally, thank goodness, you get to the thawing stage. But look closely at the timeline here. We are not talking about days or weeks. We're talking about months, even up to 2 years or more. This is absolutely a marathon, not a sprint. So, stage 1, freezing. This is where it all begins, and honestly, this stage is all about the pain. It's this deep, aching pain that just keeps getting worse. And for a lot of people, it's brutal at night, just making it impossible to get comfortable and sleep. While all that's happening, you're also starting to notice, hey, I can't lift my arm as high as I used to. The motion just starts to disappear. Then you hit stage 2, the frozen stage. And here's the weird part. That really intense pain might actually start to ease up a bit. But it's replaced by something almost as bad, just incredible stiffness. Your shoulder feels like it's locked in concrete. This is the point where simple, everyday things like putting on a jacket, combing your hair, or reaching for a seatbelt become a huge ordeal. And then, at long last, you get to stage 3, the thawing stage. This is the light at the end of the tunnel. It's the recovery. Now, it is a long and slow process, but bit by bit, that stiffness starts to let go. The ice starts to melt, and you gradually, slowly begin to get your movement back. It's a great feeling, but it takes time. All right, so we know what it is, who gets it, and what the journey looks like. Now let's get practical. How do doctors figure out you have it, and what on earth do you do about it? Let's talk diagnosis and management. You might think they'd need an MRI or an X-ray, but usually that's not the case. The diagnosis is all about a physical exam. And there's one key telltale sign a doctor or physical therapist is looking for. It's a major loss of what they call passive external rotation. Basically, that means when they try to gently turn your arm outward away from your body, it just stops. It won't go. That's the classic sign right there. So once you have the diagnosis, the game plan is actually pretty clear. Goal number 1, get that pain and inflammation under control. You can't do anything else if you're in agony. Goal number 2, hold on to the movement you still have and start the slow process of getting back what you lost. And the ultimate endgame? Simple. Getting your shoulder function back so you can go about your life. Physiotherapy, or PT, is really the foundation of treatment for this. It's not just about doing exercises. It starts with education, just understanding what's happening to you and managing the pain. Then your therapist will guide you through some very gentle stretching exercises. They might use some hands-on manual therapy to help things along, and then, only when you're ready, you'll start to slowly build up strength again. Now, especially in that super painful freezing stage, it can be hard to do any therapy at all. That's where something like a corticosteroid injection can be a real game changer. It's important to know it doesn't cure the frozen shoulder, but what it can do is knock down that intense pain and inflammation enough to give you a window where you can actually tolerate the therapy that's going to help you get better in the long run. Okay, we have covered so much. Let's zoom out and pull together the biggest, most important things you need to remember as we talk about the road to recovery. If there is one thing to take away, it is this. You have to manage your expectations. And this number says it all. 1 to 3 years. That's typically how long it takes for this condition to run its course and fully resolve. It's a long haul, and you really have to settle in for the long term. But, and this is the most important, hopeful piece of news, the condition is what's called self-limiting. That means for most people, it eventually goes away on its own. The body heals itself. The vast majority of people get better with what's called conservative management, things like physiotherapy and just learning about the condition. Surgery is rarely needed. Which really brings us to our final thought. When you think about it, this thing has a long, natural timeline, and it usually heals itself. So maybe the most powerful tool we have in our recovery toolkit isn't some fancy procedure, but something much simpler. Could it be that patience mixed with gentle, consistent work is the real secret? Something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me.